And we're back. This is Critical V for Painted Figs, and we've got another hot review. Well, not so hot since it's almost a week since release. This is the review for Avengers Endgame. So Avengers Endgame for us Sri Lankans was a bit delayed, and that is mostly because of the tragic events that conspired in this part of the world. I'm sure all of you heard of it, and we did put it out in our last newsletter. So that is why this review is a bit late, because I didn't get to watch the movie on the same time as most of you did. I did watch it this last weekend, and goodness gracious me, what a movie, what a tale, an epic conclusion to something that is pure cinematic history. 10 years and 22 films in the making, and we finally come to the conclusion to the Avengers Infinity War saga.
All right, Avengers, time to live up to your name.
So let's get straight into it. Was this a satisfying conclusion to the Infinity War saga? Well, in my personal opinion, definitely. I'm pretty sure, whether you've been a lifelong MCU fan or you've been somebody who's just joined in from Infinity War, this movie definitely delivered. Both the critics, fan reviews, and the overall feedback, especially in terms of box office sales, show that Endgame is the movie we've all been waiting for. It's just, pure cinematic goodness, and it's on such a scale that I don't think we're going to see something like this. You're not going to see anything like this in quite a long time. I'm not even sure if I'll see something like this in my lifetime. But overall, this is a beautiful ending to 10 years of cinematic history. Ever since we first saw Tony Stark declare that he was Iron Man back in 2008, Incredible Hulk, Captain America, the first Avengers movie, Thor, Guardians of the Galaxy were introduced, the supernatural introduced through Doctor Strange, you had quantum travel introduced through Ant-Man and the Wasp, the most powerful Avenger probably in the form of Captain Marvel, and of course the King of Wakanda himself, Black Panther, and so many other characters. And to bring them together on screen, it's beautiful. The main focus is on the original 6 Avengers: Hawkeye, Black Widow, the Incredible Hulk, Thor, and then the 2 big guys, Captain America and the man himself, Iron Man, Tony Stark. This movie gives them all a way of maybe closing an arc, if I were to put it that way. It gives each of the characters the time and exposure that they probably didn't get with Infinity War, and they do it beautifully. Especially Hawkeye and Black Widow comes into her own beautifully in this movie. We also see a form of Hulk that you may have heard rumors about, but trust me, it's not what you think it is. It's not what I've heard people talking about. It's not what we've been discussing amongst friends and fellow geeks. But what you see with what the Russo brothers have done with the Incredible Hulk, you're gonna love it. Trust me, you're gonna love it. Let's get back to the story at hand. It has 3 arcs, 3 mini stories, if you will. And the first arc continues directly from Avengers Infinity War. You see the consequences of the snap. You see how each of them is dealing with it. Remember the post-credit scene of Captain Marvel. They're trying to figure out what to do. They've got their hands on the beeper, if I'm not mistaken. Was it a beeper, clicker, beeper? The pager we saw at the end of Infinity War that Nick Fury dropped when he was dusted. So you finally have Captain Marvel finally arriving at the Avengers lair, and they're all desperate. They're all trying to find a way to get things back. These guys trying to figure out exactly how they are going to get to Thanos and reverse what he did. And that's where the story starts off with. There's a lot of dark elements in that part of the movie, the first arc. And they do bring in comedy, but not as much in the first act of the movie. It's a lot about, the struggle and the difficulty and the outcome of Infinity War going into Endgame, and our heroes being desperate to try and find a solution. And from that point onwards, you see the genius of the directors, the Russo brothers, that is Joe and Anthony Russo, as well as the screenwriters, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. And you see the amount of work they've put in the last couple of years. Infinity War and Endgame was shot back to back. You see that transition, you see how that movie moves from one phase to another. But I've got to tell you, that Endgame is very different. Very different. It's a completely different movie from Infinity War. You're going to get a completely different experience. You're going to see a whole different side of movie making in this particular film. And it's punctuated beautifully with some amazing score courtesy of Alan Silvestri, and of course a bunch of hits, both old and new, inspired by and acting as an inspiration for the movie. You see time travel being a big part of the movie, which is something that people have been talking about, and I won't spoil more about that for you because that's a very critical part of the second phase of the movie. But you also see a lot of throwbacks to some of the most epic moments in the last 11 years. That's why I said this movie is proper fan service to all people who have been watching MCU movies for the last 10 years. If you're a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you're going to enjoy this movie immensely because this is such a tribute to all those movies and to you and me as fans, and you're going to enjoy that. Avengers Endgame is a marvel, both in terms of narrative scale and sheer logistical ambition. Just think about it. You've got so many characters. You've got the main six that they're going to be focusing on, but you've got so many other characters. I mean, all the characters we've known and loved from the MCU, all the heroes, and to be able to bring them in at any point, because it's not a spoiler. You guys know that all the Avengers have to come back in some form, but to see them on screen and the way they balance that out, especially considering that we're talking about 25 plus heroes here, is amazing. It's just a proper acknowledgement of the amazing filmmaking skills that the Russo brothers have had. I mean, you've got to give them credit. Joss Whedon brought the original six together as the first Avengers in the first movie. Then he expanded it slightly in Age of Ultron, but you could see the fatigue that he had to face as a director. And then you have the Russo brothers who come in with Winter Soldier and then Civil War, and then from there into Infinity War. They just kept taking it one step above the other. And you know, you've not seen this many superheroes in a movie, and this scale is just insane, and that is what I love about the movie. Marcus and McFeely's script allows for some unexpected subversions of certain heroes, and it's going to be debated a lot, and it already is. I've already seen my friends talk about a lot of these character choices that they've made. Fans of the MCU's holy trinity of Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, there should be plenty of iconic moments, as I've said, I think about 100 times in this video, and you're going to see that. That's not to say that the other characters aren't, equally pivotal, but for fear of spoilers, we won't dig into that much. At the same time, several heroes get a lot less than you think they should deserve, but when considering the MCU as a whole, as well as its potential future, you can see why the writers decided to go with this particular path, out of the 14 million possible ways it could have gone. In my personal opinion, I think what the Endgame really achieved is that it helps deepen our appreciation of the movies that have preceded it and the lore that has been established. This is truly a climax of the entire franchise and not conclusion to the cliffhanger that was presented in Infinity War. And even though we know that the MCU will continue in the form of prequels and sequels even, as well as spin-offs with the newly about to be launched Disney Plus service, we have to admit that this is the end of an era, not just for some of the heroes, but also for many of the viewers, because many of us have grown with these movies. It is an entire generation that has seen heroes grow, mature, and now come to the conclusion of this epic storyline. That is what I appreciate. That is what I love about this franchise. That is what I love about what has happened. Endgame is also possibly the last Stan Lee film that we may see. It's definitely the last Gwyneth Paltrow film, that I can tell you because it's official. She will not be returning to the MCU. But you don't feel that in the movie, that I can tell you. The sense of finality of something or some things is definitely there. I would recommend that you carry, your tissues with you when you go, because there's a lot of emotion. Tears are definitely going to fall. You're going to laugh a lot. You're going to cheer for your heroes over and over again. If you remember that scene where Thor came in Infinity War, and if you were in a packed cinema full of MCU fans, the wave of euphoria that was just rushing through them as everybody was shouting in joy. This is something that you're not going to see ever again, probably in a long time. That is something that we all can appreciate with Endgame. So in conclusion, Avengers Endgame is Marvel Cinematic Universe's most ambitious project yet, probably for a while, and it somehow manages to tie up such a coherent mix of storylines and hero arcs. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they did it, and that's the payoff here. And that's a hurdle that many other blockbuster franchises have struggled with. 10 years for a franchise to be able to, come to its conclusion and then mark a new chapter, a new beginning that we will see in Phase 4. That is in itself a cinematic marvel. There's definitely going to be a lot of debate. Those of you who've seen it, those of you who are going to watch it, you know what I'm talking about, or you will soon find out. It's going to provoke a lot of debate. That's something I really appreciate. But in terms of heart, Endgame holds nothing back. This may have not been the only way for the first chapter of this amazing franchise to come to a conclusion, but when faced with 14,605 possibilities, it definitely feels like the best one. And because of that, it gets a critical V score of 9.5 out of 10.
I like this one.
Well, folks, I hope you guys enjoyed that spoiler-free review. I'm sorry that we couldn't talk much more about it, and I'm sorry this couldn't have come out in time earlier. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we have of course been going through a very difficult time here in the country, and when Avengers Endgame did come out, it was when we were struggling with all kinds of security problems because of recent tragedy that Sri Lanka had to go through. But we are coming out strong. Part of that is that these videos are going to continue. We're going to have a lot more reviews. We're going to talk a lot of movies. We're going to have some group discussions. We're also going to be talking about games, board games, video games, and so much more. So stay tuned for all of that right here on Critical V. Hope you have a great one.
Excelsior!
Enough said. Excelsior.